Ever walk into a room and felt like you just missed the memo? Like everyone else had the secret playbook and you were stuck flipping through the table of contents. Now, imagine feeling like that every day in every class. For so many students, that's reality. Maybe they're the first in their family to go to college. Maybe they're in a class where no one else looks like them, or maybe they're worried the class is too hard to pass. But here's the thing. Belonging isn't just about fitting in. It's about feeling seen, feeling confident, feeling like they deserve to be there. And today, we're talking about 10 ways educators are turning me spaces into we spaces and making belonging happen. Welcome to the What and Who of EDU, where we bring you insights from the leading educators, researchers, and innovators shaping the future of teaching and learning. From emerging teaching trends to real-world classroom strategies, we break it down to help you create a more impactful, inclusive, and effective learning experience. I'm your host, Marissa Bluestone, and today we're bringing you 10 tips from educators who know that when students feel like they belong, they're more engaged, more confident, and more willing to take risks in their learning. Today's guests, their insights come straight from their classrooms. And if you'd like to learn more about our featured educators, we've added their bios in the show notes. So stay tuned to hear why belonging starts before the first assignment, why your class definitely needs more snacks, and why the impact of belonging stretches far and long, sometimes even as far as the grocery store parking lot. Picture this. You're minding your business in a grocery store parking lot when suddenly you hear your name. You turn, but it's not your mom, it's not a long-lost friend, it's your former professor, and they remember you. Which takes us to our first tip from Dr. Erika Martinez, an award-winning economics professor of instruction at the University of South Florida. She believes the most important thing to do to foster a sense of belonging is learn every student's name.
Belonging really means that students understand that they have space to contribute, they have value in this environment. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the best thing that I do to create a sense of belonging in my classroom is learn all of my students' names. And I do that in a class of 18, and I'll do it up to when I have classes of 65 students. 95% of them are going to come to class regularly, and I learn all of their names within the first 3 weeks of the semester. And I use their names regularly, which also helps me learn them within the first 3 weeks of the semester. It's something that I know some of my colleagues do, but a lot of my colleagues don't do. And I believe that it goes a very long way in helping them see that I value them and I see them. I can say hi to them in the classroom, also in the hallway, in the student union when I run into them. I ran into a student of mine from 3 years ago at Publix the other week, and I screamed his name from across the parking lot. So I think it is very important and goes probably further than we would expect. Now, before I had children, it was easier to remember their names because I had less things on my mind. But I find ways like I'll ask them not to switch seats in the classroom a lot. So the first day I'll tell them, I'm going to try to learn your names within 3 weeks. I'm not as good as it as I was 10 years ago. Please pick your favorite seat the next time you come in and try to sit more or less in the same seat. And I promise you I'll do my best. I might make a mistake, but that's my goal over the next 3 weeks or so.
Okay, so musical chairs in Dr. Martinez's class is definitely a no-go. But what if learning names isn't enough for them to feel like they belong? What if students actually need to see themselves in the material? That's where Dr. Monroe comes in. Our second tip comes from Dr. Christin Monroe, and instead of asking students for a standard, "Hi, my name is" introduction, the assistant chemistry professor at Landmark College reframes the question for her neurodivergent learners. She asks, Who in the world of science do you see yourself as?
I think that the more I work with students, the more I realize how complex identity is. One of the things I struggle with is how do I get students to know me and know each other? I think that sometimes when you ask students to introduce themselves, some students really don't want to, and other students over introduce themselves, I'll say. And so one of the activities that I like to start off with is having students choose a scientist they identify with. And they can identify with that scientist because of personal identities or scientific identities. And they give the students that option. But I think that having them introduce themselves in that way to each other and to me can kind of help break down some barriers.
By giving students multiple ways to connect, whether it's through shared background, career goals, or just vibes, she makes introductions less about awkward self promotion and more about seeing themselves as part of something bigger. All right, so seeing yourself in science is one thing, but what if history books and literature don't even tell your story? That's exactly what Eastern University senior online academic advisor and first-year composition instructor Julie Moore set out to fix when she first started teaching at Wilberforce University, an HBCU. And our third tip explains why she wasn't about to let her students miss out on the other half of the story.
I started out teaching on the college level at Wilberforce University, our oldest private liberal arts HBCU. So that's where I learned a lot of Black history I was never taught. That's where I learned about a lot of wonderful literature written by Black authors, African-American authors that I was never taught, and learned about a lot of culture. And we were situated right across the street from the National Afro-American Museum, which at the time was the only National Afro-American Museum in the country.
She took her students to the museum to learn about the culture, and in turn, they would write a critique of a piece of art or an exhibit. But that's just one of many perspectives, and she wanted her students to have them all.
So they're reading authors of color, they're reading Amy Tan, they're reading Julia Alvarez, they're reading Frederick Douglass, they're reading Malcolm X, they're reading a chapter from Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. They have an indigenous voice in there as well. And that's to prepare them for the literacy narrative. I would say the majority of my students now are non-white. So this is how to foster a sense of belonging for them.
By making diverse voices a core part of her curriculum, whether she's teaching at an HBCU or PWI, Julie ensures her students don't just read about the history, they see themselves in it. Because confidence doesn't just come from mastering the material, it comes from knowing your story belongs in the conversation. While some professors build belonging through curriculum, Jennifer Duncan builds it through community. Our fourth tip from the Associate Professor of English at Georgia State University's Perimeter College shows us the impact of discussion spaces and reminds us that community, even an online one, can start with something as simple as tea and biscuits.
So one of the things that I really love is I have discussion spaces that are completely ungraded. And on those, especially my literature classes, I will present really goofy challenges that ask the students to literally be there, like be in the picture, be in the video. So for example, in my British literature classes, I have a weekly Be British challenge, and I will give them something to try, like go to your local international food store, buy 3 British snacks, taste them, tell us what you think about them. And then I'll post a picture of my kids doing the challenge and saying what they like and don't like. So I'm creating a sense of, hey, again, I'm a person, I'm a human, you show us. And one of my favorites was I challenged my students to have high tea and post a picture of themselves having high tea. And a lot of students, of course, just posted a picture of them with a teacup. But one of my students posted a picture of him and his grandmother at a tea parlor. They had found a tea parlor downtown, and he had taken his grandmother out for tea and taken a picture and posted it. And I loved that. And I loved that all the other students responded back because he really showed himself to be a person in the classroom. And I think when we do that, when we reveal that we're people as teachers, and when our students reveal that they're people, then we all feel like we belong together here.
And if you ask me, more classes need a Be British challenge. Because let's be real, who doesn't want an excuse to try international snacks? Betsy Langness knows that online classes can feel like sending a message into the void, like yelling, "Anyone there? Anyone there?" So for our fifth tip, the professor and psychology department head from Jefferson Community and Technical College reveals her secret weapon, video blogs. And she doesn't just assign them, she kicks things off with one of her own. Because if she's putting herself out there, her students can too.
I really think that sense of belonging is very important, especially in the online environment, once again, because they need to feel seen in this online virtual world that's asynchronous, where they feel like they're doing this all by themselves. And so I think one of the main things that I try to do is encourage students and addressing students in communication by their name, whatever name that may be. I try to make sure that I have timely feedback and that I'm available to students on those responses. And one of the activities that I do within the class, I think 4 different times, is they do a video blog. And on that, I provide my own example for them. So they see me, they hear me talk about whatever the topic may be. And I think that helps create that connection that, okay, if our instructor can do it, then I can do it too.
Seeing your professor on video reminds you that they're a real person. But you know what really makes a difference? When they make sure their students feel like one too. Assistant Professor of English and Composition Coordinator from Clark Atlanta University, Dr. Margaret Holloway, has a trick. And our sixth tip, it's something we all need a little bit more of: acknowledgement of what we're doing well.
Creating a sense of community by acknowledging things that they're doing really well. And it could just be something as, oh, you've been on time for class, for the past 2 weeks. I'm so proud of you. You're doing great with your time management. Or it could be, wow, I saw that you really had a strong command of the rhetorical situation in your last essay. Let's keep it going. So making those more personable comments to them and just knowing who they are, being interested, like, hey, what are y'all doing this weekend? Or are y'all going on, to any events on campus or things like that? Just making it seem like I'm just really interested in who they are as a scholar, not just someone in my class, but a part of our academic community at our university. So I think that is the best way to just have a sense of belonging, because when your professors care, it makes the students want to be there and do more and do better.
Because sometimes the smallest compliments, like praising a student's time management or their grasp of an essay concept, can be the biggest game changer for confidence and motivation. And let's be real, who doesn't want to hear they're doing a good job? Many students walk into Dr. Jennifer Ripley Stueckle's class thinking, I'm just here for the Gen Ed credit. But by the end of the semester, the teaching professor of biology at West Virginia University has them knee-deep in a stream, teaching elementary students about water quality and actually caring about the material, which takes us to our seventh tip.
I teach classes that go from 30 to 250 students, and my large lecture classrooms are non-major classrooms. So the students are taking it for a general requirement or general education requirement. And I have seen them come in saying, I don't care about this class. I'm just taking it for this check mark on my transcript. I have started to incorporate service projects into these classes. And it has connected them to me, connected them to their peers, and connected them to the community that I don't think they would have had the opportunity with before. So I do all kinds of service projects with the large lecture classroom. One of the first concepts we learn is ecology and human impacts on the environment and habitat and ecosystems. And so what I'll do is I'll have my students learn those concepts, and then we invite elementary and middle school students to go out to streams and rivers around the area. And I have my students teach them those concepts out in the field.
They learn what a habitat is, they get their nets and water kits, and they connect with the environment and the kids.
They love interacting again with the elementary and middle school students. They even love connecting with the teachers because the teachers just beam at how amazing these college students are. It gives the younger students a role model to look up to, that I could be like this college student one day. And it really boosts the confidence of my students. Their grades on that first exam are A's and B's. They just, because they know the material and they invested in the material. And again, I do that at the beginning of the semester so that I get them invested. And then they also feel more comfortable with me because they see Dr. Ripley out in a stream with her knees up to mud, wearing whatever boots and stuff. And they see me as a real person, and they see that I have confidence in their knowledge and their ability to do things. And so they feel like they belong in my classroom and with me for the semester.
They learn what a habitat is, they get their nets and water kits, and they connect with the environment and the kids. Leading real service projects like Trout in the Classroom connects students to the material, to each other, and importantly, to their community, because nothing builds belonging quite like getting your hands dirty, or in this case, your boots very muddy, while also making a real-world impact. Most of Adriana Bryant's students aren't English majors, so the English and Developmental English instructor from Lone Star College Kingwood designs assignments that actually feel relevant. Tip 8 is to use music, art, and culture so that writing doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like something worth doing.
I create a lot of assignments with different options to allow them to feel like their specific strengths, whether it's in artistic strength or music. Like there's so many different ways in which they can find something that is more appealing to them, especially since a lot of my students are not English majors. So I want them to be able to still gain the skills that I want from these English assignments, but in a way that applies to them. I want them to be able to see themselves or their culture, their interests in the things that we cover, again, so they can see how that skill, that this whole process can apply to them, how they can utilize it outside.
Because when writing feels like a chore, students check out. But when it feels like self-expression, they may actually show up. Here's a fact. Students work harder when they don't want to let each other down. Dr. Mike May, Lower Division Coordinator in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at St. Louis University, gives us our 9th tip: to build belonging by structuring teamwork so that success depends on mutual understanding.
Part of it is the group work, that if they think of themselves as a team where they're working with each other, they're more likely, I find, to be concerned about letting another student down than they are about getting a bad grade. And so if they form a team that they work together and that they're pulling for each other, and with that, I will do things like the work isn't done until everyone in your group can explain it. And I get to pick someone at random from the group to explain it. So you've got to have explained it well enough that they can answer for you.
Because in his classroom, the work isn't done until everyone in the group can explain it. No free rides, No lone wolves, just a team working together, like the Avengers, but with calculators. Baylor University senior lecturer Amy Goodman can't change the fact that math is, well, it's math. But she can change how students feel about being wrong, which brings us to our final tip: creating a classroom where mistakes aren't failures, they're part of the process.
I'm a big believer in self-regulated learning. So belonging, in my opinion, falls under supporting students' overall affect. I mean, I can't make the class not be math, but hopefully I can help you not hate it when you come. Like, dare I say, you might even have fun in your math class. But belonging a lot of times in math might stem from a student's just fear of failure. You know, one aspect of math classes is that students know there's a right answer. And if you're not right, then by default, you must be wrong. And so being wrong in front of your peers can be very intimidating and just bring a sense of social shame to it. So we want to avoid all of those things. So I really start off at the beginning, just reminding students that some of the math concepts we tackle are heavy. They have a high cognitive load. But when you walked into this class, you were admitted into Baylor University. In fact, you've been admitted into a STEM major at Baylor University. You have already proven to the world that you are a smart and capable individual. You already belong in this community. But you'll know you belong in this classroom specifically when you can be wrong without fear of being labeled as a failure. So I encourage them to be wrong daily. In fact, I'll tell them that they haven't really learned anything for the day if they didn't find themselves being wrong at any time in a problem. And then when you're wrong, noticing that the sky doesn't fall down, that the world is not over. So just kind of really encouraging people to be wrong, to be very lighthearted in being wrong, and then to support each other in being wrong. I mean, because being wrong is part of what we do all the time, and I really tell them there's no stupid questions. But if you feel that your neighbor may have asked something that was obvious to you, just when in doubt, we speak flowers, we don't speak weeds.
In her classroom, mistakes aren't failures. They're proof that you're learning. And as Dr. Goodman puts it, we speak flowers, not weeds. Because in her class, mistakes don't define you, but lifting each other up, that's what makes belonging bloom. And that's a wrap. From remembering students' names to helping them become Avengers with calculators, we've packed this classroom survival kit with strategies that help foster a sense of belonging from some of the best teachers in the business. Because when students feel like they belong, they don't just learn more, they dare more, they dream more, and they show up as their full selves. Got a belonging hack that works wonders in your classroom? Leave us a voicemail at 512-765-4688, and you might just hear yourself on a future episode. Bonus points if it's the kind of advice that makes us laugh and learn. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. Your support means everything. I'm Marissa Bluestone, and I'll catch you next time as we explore the 10 AI guardrails that you should have in your classroom, like yesterday, with advice from teachers just like you. Thanks so much for tuning in.